In today's video from DIY Around the Home, we'll be fixing a cracked brine tank from our water softener system. A very slow leak has been made evident by this growing salt scab. Luckily, the salt in the tank plugged up the leak, so a huge mess was never made. Today, we're going to fix the crack by replacing the brine tank with a used unit we found on online classifieds for $35. Though it is the same size, 36 inches tall, it is not the exact replacement, so we'll walk through the options you might have, since these tanks, according to Google Gemini, are universal and can be used interchangeably for most soft water systems, with some exceptions. To save yourself some money, don't lock yourself into buying an exact replacement of the brand you have. Most of the time, these brine tanks will run $150 to $300. If you can find a suitable replacement from another brand, you can save a lot of money, and even more money if you can find one used like I did. To find out if your brine tank will work with a typical brine tank, look at this diagram and compare the parts of your system. If yours looks like this, then my recommendation is to measure the height, most importantly, then the width and depth next. If you can find a similar sized tank, you will most likely be able to move your float and valve assembly from your existing unit and place it into the brine well, the small cylindrical tube that goes inside the brine tank. To do the work, first unplug your unit from the power. Next, remove the top of the brine tank. Next, remove the brine well cap and loosen the nut on the valve assembly. Be careful not to let any pieces on the hose fall off. Also, I highly recommend taking a picture or video of the connection pieces and how they're oriented on the tubing. You don't want to put these back on backwards. Luckily, most tubing in these units are 3/8 inch. If you find that the tubing is not a perfect match, you can buy step-up or step-down adapters to get the tubing to work. Next, take the connections off and slide the tubing out of the brine tank hole. Next, take the overflow elbow off by holding the elbow in one hand and loosening the net on the inside of the tank. With these two items removed, you can now take the brine well out of the tank. Now it's time to take the old water and salt pellets out of the tank so you can move the brine tank out of the way. Here I got a large cup and a bucket and moved the water and salt scoop by scoop until the resin tank was light enough to move. A quick cleanup in the area is needed, so I'll knock that out really quick. With the replacement tank in place, I am now going to take the brine well out and see how well it compares size-wise with the existing valve assembly. My plan is to use the existing valve assembly with the new tank and brine well, since those two holes will line up perfectly. Doing it this way, I don't have to worry about adjusting the float or worry about any compatibility issues at all, since all of the main components are still being kept. In the end, I'm simply replacing the cracked tank with a new one and a new brine well. For this to work, the assembly has to be similar in height, which, as you can see in this image, they are very close. I can always drill a little hole on the brine well if I need to mount the valve assembly higher or lower than the hole from the existing brine well. To get the overflow elbow installed back in, it's easiest to remove the valve assembly so you can reach down into the brine well with your hands. With the brine well connected, let's move to the line and where it connects to the water softener. When the line is removed, take a photo again of the connections to see how they're oriented. Putting them back in backwards will result in leaks and possibly permanent damage to the physical components of your system. I ended up using the new line even though it was shorter, because it was clearly newer. My system is 23 years old, and the one that I bought came out of a house that was 5 years old. To do this, take the connector pieces out and swap them into the new line you are keeping. Back of the tank, make the valve assembly connections and replace the brine well lid. You are ready to put the liquid and salt pellets you took out of the old tank into the new. Because the salt level is a little low, I went ahead and added another 44-pound bag of Morton Clean Protect water softener pellets. These are my favorite water softener pellets by a mile. I've tried several products over the years and these work the best. Some other brands would leave the tank brown and gross looking, while these ones process everything cleanly. Now, let's plug the unit back in and update the clock on the control panel. Finally, let's force a regeneration to verify the system is running properly and that there are no leaks. While that takes place, I'm going to go and take some Purple Power cleaning degreaser and make the tank look a little nicer. With the lid back on the brine tank, now it is time to sit back and occasionally check on the system while it runs a regen cycle. Again, we're mainly looking for leaks or weird sounds or signs of something going wrong. In our case, nothing did. In an upcoming video, we'll be experimenting with the old tank and trying to epoxy weld the leak shut. I've read some unsuccessful results of people trying this online, but if you could make it work, it would be even cheaper and simpler option. If any of you have done this and have seen positive results, I'd love to hear about it in the comment section below. As mentioned earlier, we've linked all the items in the video description below, which, by the way, if you click on one of those links and buy something, shortly after I might get a small kickback at no cost to you. Also, there's a way to help small creators like myself via the super thanks button below the video. And lastly, it wouldn't be a video from the internet if I didn't ask you to hit the subscribe button. At least my pleading was at the end of the video, so you didn't have to sit through that before getting the information you came for. Regardless of what you may or may not do, I appreciate your time.